This is what happens when you get fans to make your content. Now, I used to do videos like this on the channel. I made a video series called... What the heck was it called? Would You Do It? Or something like that? No. It wasn't called Would You Do It? It was called NHL Trade Proposals. That's what it was. Where I would ask you, the viewer out there watching this video, to comment in the comment section below your hypothetical trade proposals, and the ones that I liked, I would go out there and make a video about it. These videos got a lot of poor reception because a lot of people were kind of saying, yo, Lego, you're just kind of view whoring at this point. You can't go out there, just make videos about whatever the fans are asking you could make a video about. Don't go out there and talk about hypothetical trades because these are ridiculous and these are not going to happen. Therefore, you're just kind of going out there trying to exploit clicks. And in a way, that was true because it was the summer of 2019 and there was nothing really else to talk about. I went to Japan and had myself making videos about Brock Besser and the contract extension while walking around in Osaka. So there was a lot of conversation that I wanted to spark up, but that's kind of what happens when you get your fans to make your content for you. And lo and behold, that's what the folks at The Athletic ended up doing recently. Take a look at this article here by Daniel Nugent-Bowman and Alan Mitchell, published on March 9th, 2022. Who says no? This is us evaluating 25 Oilers trades, from goalie upgrades to bold swaps and the ultimate blockbuster. Now, this is a hypothetical in and of itself. It's a 25 hypothetical list, or I should say it's a list of 25 hypothetical trades published out by the fans, and these guys went out there and wrote about it. This is, of course, behind a paywall, so we're not going to go ahead and read it from this article. Instead, we're going over onto NHLTradeTalk.com because they actually summarize the entire idea that was published in this piece. Here's the article. Could the Oilers and Devils make a big blue line trade ahead of the trade deadline? Writers for The Athletic, as well as an NHL scout, discussed the idea of a big trade between the Oilers and the Devils involving two big-name defensemen. We'll read a little bit of this article right here and then go over my thoughts. The Edmonton Oilers are in a situation where they might need to find inventive ways to improve their salary cap situation both this year and next, with limited resources available to add a player ahead of this year's NHL trade deadline and an unwillingness by GM Ken Holland to trade the team's first-round pick or a high-end prospect. The options are running out. That's why a trade suggestion made in a recent article in The Athletic is so interesting. A number of contributors over there took a look at 25 possible trade options and examined how realistic each trade was. Writers and an unnamed NHL scout broke down a few trades. Among them, a deal that would see the Oilers move defenseman Tyson Barrie. Now, for Tyson Barrie, let's just pause the article right here and go over his entire profile. Barrie's honestly just more of what Barrie is. He's out right now with an injury, so we wish him a speedy recovery, but in the 49 games played he has had with the Oilers this year, he's got 3 goals, 20 assists for 23 total points. He is on pace for 34 points over 73 games, which would be a pretty significant dip from what he has accomplished in the past. Like, this year of Barrie and his performance in Edmonton is almost as bad as his Toronto year. He actually had a better point production there, and that was seen as one of the more off years of his career. He was a 50-plus point defenseman with the Colorado Avalanche for all those years, and we all kind of know the impact that Barrie had on that blue line. But for Barrie right now, things are kind of difficult for him and where he lies with the Oilers, especially with the Oilers and their entire, depth scoring problem. It's kind of plaguing Edmonton, the same things that we have been talking about for years and years. Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, they're not the problem, it's everything else around them. It's the goaltending, it's the defensive consistency, it's the depth throughout the lineup. Tyson Barrie, unfortunately for him, is not really helping out in the best way that he could. Of course, he's not playing right now, but the point still remains. Even when he's in the lineup, he isn't really the top dog like he was last year. Go back over onto the article right here. The suggested trade that was highlighted in the Athletic piece was PK Subban, at 50% retained, for Tyson Barrie and Kyle Turris. Essentially, the Oilers would be getting Subban at $4.5 million while sending out $6.15 million. Edmonton would get a right-shot blue liner who could play in the top 4, move out Barrie, who is locked in longer term, but providing a similar style of play to Evan Bouchard, and save $1.65 million in space to make another move. Now, before we go over and talk about what the Athletic guys went out there and said about this trade, let's just highlight this idea right here, man. PK Subban going over to the Oilers. Look, I've said it a ton over the past few years, but I'm a fan of pandemonium. I love seeing the chaos unfold throughout the NHL and its stories, and this would be one of those stories. Imagine PK going from Montreal, where he was an absolute superstar, to Nashville, where he helped them go to the Stanley Cup Finals, to New Jersey, where he completely tanks down in value, and then goes over to Edmonton, of all places, to try to get one last hoorah, one last opportunity at getting himself a cup. And I say cup and not cup run because, I mean, with Montreal, they had some playoff success, not a lot though. You had yourselves Nashville, they went to the finals. There was a little bit of success that PK had throughout the previous two teams that he had been on before New Jersey. Edmonton being the last one, though, before his contract expires and he goes to free agency, that's hilarious to me. Now, the idea of Kyle Turris and Tyson Barrie going back the other way, it kind of boggles my mind because when you think about the Oilers and how things are going, okay, just remove Kyle Turris from the equation for a second right here. Tyson Barrie is a guy who has 23 points in 49 games. PK Subban has 18 in 55. Tyson Barrie is the better defenseman. It's just that PK expires this season, and if you get him at salary retained, you can get him for a cheaper cap hit. Tyson Barrie is making literally half of what PK is making right now. It's just that he has the extra few years on his deal. You take a look at both of these players, and even though Tyson Barrie might be the objectively better player today, and he's younger, he is signed on until 2024. Now, some teams might say, okay, great, this guy's signed on for a while, we don't have to worry about re-signing him, cap hit, yada yada yada, but for a team like Edmonton, where you don't really need somebody like Tyson Barrie anymore because Boucher is there, PK Subban could be the more attractive option because, hey, he's expiring already, we don't need to go out there and commit time on the lineup to a guy that is doing what we don't need him to do. Kyle Turris is just an addition here that is only being thrown in for the sake of freeing up salary. Kyle Turris this year is making himself a pretty sizable $1.65 million that expires at the end of this season, and he's been bad. Like, he's got 4 points in 23 games this year. He really fell off after his days in Nashville. I have no idea what happened with Kyle Turris at Edmonton. You can go ahead in the comments and let me know what went down there. But going back over onto our NHL Trade Talk article, the reactions to this trade proposal were mixed amongst the writers of The Athletic. Some liked the plan in a financial sense because it gave the Oilers more room to make more moves this season and moving forward. The Devils writer didn't hate the deal, even if it wasn't exactly what New Jersey might be looking for, and an NHL scout said he didn't think the Devils would bite, because they're trying to move contracts and not add term. Now, the entire idea is popped up as to whether or not Subban could do well in an Oilers uniform, and this is what Alan Mitchell, Oilers writer, goes out there and says about it. I've always liked Subban, and I believe that he has been unfairly framed as a player in recent years. His underlying numbers are solid at 5-on-5, and he has value. The contract makes him less attractive, but cutting it in half means it's far more palatable. Would New Jersey make this trade? Now, we already know that the Devils are not going to re-sign Subban. They don't plan to bring him back, so anything is up in the air, right? They do have themselves a guy that they probably don't see too much value in keeping long-term, and therefore they could just shell him out. Okay, here's PK. 50% retain, we'll hold on to that because it's only going to be on our cap for the next few months. New Jersey has themselves an option here to go out and actually get some stuff should they really decide to do that. Now, for PK, we have seen other teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Bruins maybe be interested in this guy. Edmonton isn't particularly linked to him either. It's just a hypothetical trade idea being brought up in The Athletic, which is why we're even talking about this. So if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, let me know in the comments, what would you think about this type of trade? Barrie and Turris, so there's the term and the money coming off the books for you, for PK Subban 50% retained. Do you think that salary cap space for the next few years is going to be worth it in order to downgrade from Barrie to PK this season? You could argue, okay, sure, because, I mean, Bouchard's already in that spot, PK would be playing less minutes, you don't really need to commit that time to either of these two guys, and plus they're also right, so they can go out there in the same position. But I know there might be some Tyson Barrie fans here or there that would say, okay, I'd rather have Barrie than PK because PK is just not that good. Either way, you can let me know in the comments all your thoughts. If you're a New Jersey Devils fan, talk to me in the comments as well. You don't really want to go out there and just trade away PK for nothing per se, but Kyle Turris expiring this year, Tyson Barrie having term the next few years. Do you want a Tyson Barrie for an extended amount of time? He's not a young guy, he's particularly old. You could say that there's an offensive complementary piece to Dougie Hamilton, but I'm still looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this entire idea and whether or not you would feel it would be appropriate. So, talk to me in the comments, let your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this Trolls 99. And bye.